the early morning hours of April 20th, 1914, gunfire erupted across a dusty tent colony in southern Colorado. Families scrambled for cover. Children hid in cellars dug beneath canvas homes. By nightfall, the camp would be in ashes, and more than a dozen people, including women and children, would be dead. This was the Ludlow Massacre, one of the darkest chapters in American labor history. Tonight, we're telling the story of how a labor strike turned into a battlefield, and how workers demanding basic rights were met with bullets. At the turn of the 20th century, coal powered America. It heated homes, fueled railroads, and drove industry. In Colorado, the coal fields were dominated by one powerful company, Colorado Fuel and Iron, owned by industrialist John D. Rockefeller Jr. For miners, life was harsh and dangerous. Explosions, cave-ins, and lung disease were constant threats. Thousands of miners, many of them immigrants from Greece, Italy, and Eastern Europe, worked long hours for low pay. But the dangers didn't end underground. Most miners lived in company towns. Their homes, their stores, even their schools were owned by the company. Workers were often paid in company scrip, currency that could only be spent at company stores. If a miner spoke out or tried to organize, he could be fired and evicted within days. There were no safety guarantees, no unions, no legal protections. So in 1913, miners decided they had had enough. That September, thousands of coal miners went on strike under the banner of the United Mine Workers of America. Their demands were simple: recognition of their union, an 8-hour workday, better safety enforcement, the right to be paid in real money, the freedom to live outside company towns. When the strike began, companies immediately evicted workers and their families from company housing. With nowhere else to go, the union set up tent colonies. The largest of these was near the small town of Ludlow, Colorado. Nearly 1,200 people, men, women, and children, lived in rows of white canvas tents stretched across the windy plains. But the strike was far from peaceful. Coal companies hired private detectives from the infamous Pinkerton National Detective Agency to harass and intimidate strikers. Armored cars mounted with machine guns, nicknamed Death Specials, patrolled near the camps. As clashes escalated, the governor of Colorado called in the Colorado National Guard. At first, the Guard was meant to keep peace, but as the strike dragged into the winter months, funding ran out. Many guardsmen were withdrawn. Others, some with close ties to coal companies, remained. By April 1914, tensions were at a breaking point. On the morning of April 20th, National Guard troops positioned themselves on hills overlooking the Ludlow tent colony. Accounts differ on who fired first, but soon, machine guns were blazing into the camp. For hours, gunfire rained down on the tents below. Families dug into shallow pits beneath their tents, makeshift cellars meant to protect them from stray bullets. One of the strike leaders, Greek immigrant Louis Tikas, tried to negotiate a ceasefire. By the end of the day, the camp was burning. When the flames died down, a horrifying discovery was made. In one cellar beneath a charred tent, the bodies of 2 women and 11 children were found. They had suffocated as the fire consumed the camp. In total, around 19 people were killed that day, including Tikas himself. The Ludlow Massacre had left the nation stunned. News of the massacre spread across the country. Newspapers published images of dead children pulled from the ashes. Public outrage exploded. For 10 days after Ludlow, enraged miners armed themselves and attacked mines and National Guard positions across Colorado in what became known as the Colorado Coalfield War. Eventually, federal troops were sent in by President Woodrow Wilson to restore order. No one was ever criminally convicted for the deaths at Ludlow, but the damage to Rockefeller's reputation was immense. Congressional hearings followed, and the massacre became a rallying cry for labor reform across America. The Ludlow Massacre exposed the brutal realities of industrial power in early 20th century America. It forced the nation to confront uncomfortable questions. Should corporations control every aspect of workers' lives? What happens when the government sides with business over citizens? How far should workers go in fighting for their rights? Though change came slowly, Ludlow became a symbol of sacrifice in the labor movement. It helped fuel future reforms in workplace safety, child labor laws, and union protections. Today, the site is preserved as the Ludlow Tent Colony Site, a memorial to those who lost their lives. The Ludlow Massacre wasn't just a clash between strikers and soldiers. It was a turning point in the struggle between labor and industry. A reminder that the rights many workers have today were paid for, sometimes in blood. If you love this story, subscribe for more, because sometimes the past isn't just history, it's a warning.